All right, so we're going to get started. It's 9 o'clock, and we are going to, let me just kind of take that away. How do I take this away here? Um, uh, there we go. We're going to get started. It is our first Zoom call for April. Don't worry, all of this is being recorded. So if you miss any part of it or you have to jump off or leave, perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. You don't have to show up every single day, every hour, every second. Use this class as something that you return to when you have time or when you have the space to create and actually want to learn a little bit something or so forth. So my name's Krista again, and we started our first week. And the first week I started focusing on the background, the negative space of my painting, as well as the focusing on the various areas of the face. I did the eyes, we did the nose. And so today I'm going to do a demo of the mouth area and just kind of work through that. We are here for maybe a bit, depending on how much I get done, maybe 2 hours, maybe less, depending on how much I get done, how many questions I get. If you do have questions and you're watching the replay, just send me an email if you have questions about any of the content that I have shared and provided so far. All right, so I am recording this. So this is being recorded. I'm also recording because I always feel that the Zoom video is just so blurry. It's not that clear. So I am recording this demo on my camera as well. So I can get a good, clear video of the demo. So it's kind of like all the other demos that I provide. Hopefully the lighting stays, hopefully everything stays perfect. All right, so we're going to get started. So first thing I wanted to do was talk about my palette here. And as you can see, I did share a video of me cleaning and organizing my palette. And as you can see here, I've been doing a lot of painting, and this palette is kind of messy, but it's still workable. But you can see what I like about the structure of this palette is that I can have all these little messy little piles, but I'm working in value. So I'm keeping everything in its value line. This is line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then I just kind of mix horizontally. So if I need something in a lighter value, I'll go to my line that I'm thinking may work. And then I will mix my colors going horizontally. Occasionally, you might see me mix vertically, but most of the time I'm sticking with my value line. And I did mention that, I find depending on the skin tone that I am utilizing, the skin tone that I am mixing, I start with a line. I start with my mid-tone. That can be different depending on who you're painting. So usually I'm always painting myself. And so I start with a middle, which is like my line 4. And I use that as my baseline, as where do I need to get lighter? So then I go down a line. Do I need to get darker? I go up a line. So this way of organizing my palette has been really helpful because it gives me a baseline, and then it gives me a direction of which way I need to go based on value. And I know when I first started painting, I see some people on there. Make sure if you don't hear me, put something in the chats. I hopefully you can hear me. um, so what was I saying? I got off track now. So this has allowed me, when I first started, one of the things that instructors or my art teacher would tell me is value is very, very important. And it's really, really important. But when I was starting out, when someone would talk about value, like you got to get the value right, value is key, it would just go totally over my head. I had no idea. What are you talking about? Value? I don't, and how am I supposed to know what value I'm supposed to use? I have no clue. So I had learned this concept, not exact. Took an art class with a really amazing artist. I can't pronounce her name, but I'll put it in my classroom of the class I took with her because she's an amazing artist. And she had organized her palette not by pre-mixing colors, because I struggle with pre-mixing colors. I don't know what color I want to use. I have no clue. I haven't even started my painting. Maybe I'm just not that, not that, advanced. And some artists are really good at that, but most beginner artists have no clue what color you need for your overall painting, or what colors. So when I took her class, she organized her palette a little differently. And she went, instead of going vertically, she organized the value going horizontally. And she actually went above the line. This is line 7 here, and she would get even darker than line 7. So things were going this way, and then she would even go darker. She would make the yellow ochre darker. She'd make all these colors darker. And maybe I'll explain her way of doing it. I'll do a video of it because it's very interesting. But I figured, I don't want to confuse people, but I felt like this was a great way to explain what's going on in my head when I'm creating, or how I'm choosing colors, or how I'm finding the value, and, making it easier to actually see what's happening or what I'm doing. So I felt like when I started doing these workshops, I was like, you know what? I'm going to organize my palette by value, and I haven't even mentioned temperature, so that it's easy for people to understand. And it creates a structure and a game plan, so that when you need a specific value, you can go right to it without mixing and comparing and trying to figure out what's correct. When I did first start painting, I wasn't painting with oil or acrylic. I was actually painting with pastels, which are little sticks of pigment. And I'm asking myself now, why wasn't I doing this sooner? Because when I was working on pastels, I'll have to find a picture of I have a box that holds all my pastels, and I would organize all the pastels based on value. And I'm like, it made it so easy. So when I was painting with pastels, I would just pull the right value and the right color I needed. And it made it easy to organize all these little sticks. And I'm asking myself now that I've been using this palette, why wasn't I doing this sooner? Because it makes life so much easier. So if you have any questions about this and the setup, please ask, ask away. If you have any questions about the colors I've chosen, I tried to explain why I choose the colors I do. And if you have any questions about, hey, I have this type of red, what do you think of this type of red as well? Ask as many questions about it. My palette has evolved based on time and knowledge. And what you'll find is you will personally tend to gravitate towards certain colors. And there'll be certain colors that other artists use that you're like, I don't know how to use that color. I don't know how to incorporate it into what I'm seeing. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. You will find you will gravitate towards certain reds, certain greens, blues, yellows, and so forth. So, allow your palette or the colors that you choose to be personally workable for you. Don't base it on what somebody else has told you. I'll mention one more color because there's a lot of controversy with that color, is ivory black. And I have it here in my little corner here. Black is an important color in my palette. And I know a lot of people have heard, don't use black. Black is a color killer. It ruins paintings. Don't use black. I disagree. I think black is a really important color for your palette. Black is a great neutralizer. It grays colors. It lowers the chroma, the saturation of a color. And you'll notice that life is gray. A lot of color that we see in life, trees, nature, the sky, skin tone, it has a grayish tone to it. If we're looking at something that's a little bit more realistic, you'll notice that your palette is a little bit grayer rather than that bright, saturated color that you're used to seeing. So don't sleep on ivory black. I also use ivory black. There's a specific palette that I like. It's called the Zorn, Z-O-R-N palette. It consists of yellow ochre, red, trying to remember, yellow ochre, red, white, and black. And I did a little video, I think I'll share it with you, of the Zorn palette. It's pretty, a lot of artists use it. And you'd be surprised the range of color that you can get by just having those 4 colors. The black is basically your blue, becomes your blue or your neutralizer. So black is a versatile color. You can use it a lot. Just don't use too much of it, or don't use it right out the tube. Always kind of mix it with color. But you can also make your own black as well. But I like having that on my palette as well. I enjoy using it. So I'm a part of the group that says use black. There's nothing wrong with it. Any questions about what I rambled on about my palette? I'm proud of my palette. It's taken me a long time to feel comfortable with it. And you notice I have colors like kind of sitting on the side here that I didn't organize. Occasionally I will find a color that I'm like, ooh, what does that do? I'll put it in the little aside here and I'll incorporate it and kind of practice with it. And so in this painting, I'm kind of playing around with this color over here. This is quinacridone rose, which is similar, not as dark, but it's similar to the alizarin crimson. It could possibly be a substitute for alizarin crimson. We'll see. I love the quinacridone magenta. I wouldn't substitute it because it is more of a purpley color when you break it down into its values. But we'll see. We'll see with that quinacridone rose. I'll let you know by the end of the month what I think of that and whether I add it to my palette. Okay. So today I'm going to focus on the mouth area and kind of talk about the shape of the mouth area. And one thing I like to do is I'm in this blocking in phase, and I'm in this phase of gathering information. Now, I paint my face all the time, so I'm pretty knowledgeable about how my face, kind of the hills, the sagging, all the different uniqueness and flaws and wonderful things about my face. I've looked at it forever. I've painted myself several times. But one thing is really, and that's why it's really important to, it's a really good idea to paint your own face, because you're right there. You can touch it, you can feel it, you can get a sense of where things, what's happening. And I think it's really important to understand what's happening in your face and what happens when you smile, what happens right here when you smile, what happens up here. All your face, everything in your face is connected. So when you smile, something happens up here too. Your eyebrows tend to raise. Something happens when you frown. Other parts of your face become affected by what's happening down here as well. So that's information that that is important when you are painting the face. And I don't know if I talked about it this month. I get all my months all mixed up, but there's a program that I use called, let me get it. I talk about it all the time, but I think it's really a great program here. It's called, hold on, Head Model Studio, and I mention it in the supply area. And the Head Model Studio is an app. I have it on my iPad here. And it's basically, it's, if you want to learn the structure of this, so if you've been with me a few months, you've seen me like rave about this. But if you're new, this app, there is a cost to it if you want all the bells and whistles. But this app is like so amazing. And you can change the model. You can change like the full structure. It also has, let me go away. There we go. It also has a skeleton, a model of a skeleton, and you can move it around and you can see. This is really amazing. It's worth, I can't remember. I think you pay for the year. It may have been like $20, I think. Don't quote me on that. But if you're interested in really kind of needing guidance, I use this all the time. So this, like looking at the skeleton, I don't know how to get rid of this here. I don't know why that's doing that. Anyway, you get a sense of what's happening. You get a sense of information of what's happening underneath. Not only do we need to have information about what's happening around our face or our portrait, the sky, the light, the carpet on the floor, the clothes that we're wearing, all these things influence what we're seeing in our face. It all plays a role, whether it's the source of light, the reflective light from the green carpet that you have, or the bright orange shirt that you have. Everything is in play. But this is also in play as well. Understanding what's happening underneath will help you understand all the hills. If you feel your face, will help you understand all the hills and valleys of what's happening in the face. It will help you feel there's the cheekbone, it's right here. And then what happens underneath the cheekbone? We can see right underneath this cheekbone, it tends to kind of fall into this puffiness, right? And there's like no bone there. And then all of a sudden you feel again, and you feel the jawbone, you feel a bone. Same with the eye area. We're not going to poke ourselves in the eye, but you feel this brow bone. You feel all these bone structures. That's going to help you understand how to form and shape your face. I was talking about, let me go back. Was talking about how the face is connected. It also gives you it looks pretty morbid, but it gives you the muscle of the face. So you can actually see all the muscles that are affecting. So if you move a certain area, I don't think it's that advanced, but if you smile, you'll see all the muscle that is affected by the fact that you're smiling. Really, really, I took a class. I have, it's called Sketchy. And if you've ever used, it's an app. They have a website. And they provide, it's called SKTCHY. And it's a great app because people take their selfies and you can get photo references and they want you to draw or paint them. But Sketchy also has a bunch of classes and they're pretty inexpensive. But they have a class in there. I think it's still available from this instructor. I'll find it and I'll put it in the supply area where she teaches all of this. She teaches the skeletal structure and the muscle structure and goes really technical in all of this. I don't know all the technical terms, so I'm just going to kind of explain it the way I can memorize it. But this is a great app. So great app if you want to learn and practice and understand the face. It also has these little kind of practices that you can utilize and time yourself and practice with. So again, Head Model Studio, really great. Let me go back to my photo here. All right, so I'm gonna change my screen and we're gonna kind of look at my painting and we'll talk about it, talk about my painting and how I'm going to kind of navigate the mouth area. So hopefully this works. Bear with me. Share. Okay. And let me, and then I'm gonna try to, oops, I don't want that. I want to get I'm gonna move this here so you can see my palette still. So I got to do some maneuvering here. All right. So if everyone can see, if you can see my palette, you can see the painting. The lighting isn't that great. That's a Zoom thing. So for the replay, I'm going to record the same thing on my camera here so that I get a good replay video. I'm always like hesitant to do demos on Zoom because I don't know, Zoom just doesn't have a great camera, doesn't have a great way of recording video. Sometimes it comes out blurry. So making sure that my replay comes out really well. So I'm just aligning cameras here so that, there we go. Okay. So here we have the face. We can all see it there. Let me get myself out of the way. Turn around so you don't see me. Here. Move it a bit. So I'm not in the way. Okay. So let's see if I can adjust that a bit. Bear with me a second. I'm going to try to make it a little darker. I think the light is a little too light. Sorry about that. I want you to be able to see it the way it looks. I'm just adjusting here. All right, I just wanted to be a little bit darker. All right, that's good enough. Little too light, but my other camera will do it justice. All right, so I did the eye area. I did the nose area. And in the beginning, I'm in this blocking in stage. I'm in this kind of feeling of I'm not focusing on any type of detail. I don't have any eyelashes. A lot of times I will take my brush and just kind of smudge softly. This is all pretty dry. So that I don't have any hard lines. So what is a hard line? A hard or soft line? I'm just gonna take some burnt sienna and I'm gonna, you can see my arm, a hard line. I'm right up at the upper arm here. And this would be like a hard line. I'll make it go away, but that would be like, that's a hard line. That's a line that shows contrast, right? You could definitely see the light and the dark. Now, yes, you will see in some areas a hard line, but most of the face, there's nowhere really on the face where you will see hard lines like that. Even in the lip area, unless there's something artificial on the face that is allowing for that, right? So let's say eyebrows, right? Let me move myself over a bit. Sorry. So let's talk about like makeup. And you have a model that has drawn on their eyebrows, right? So if someone has drawn in their eyebrows with black, whatever you use to draw on eyebrows, it's going to look hard. It looks harsh in real life too. If you see a person who puts on makeup and they draw black, if I could think of somebody who does that, but it looks harsh, right? It looks unnatural. It doesn't look real. It looks like someone artificially added black paint to their eyebrows. In reality, when we look at eyebrows, there is a lot of value and it's very soft. If we look at someone's eyebrows really carefully, I'm talking really, really stare at somebody's eyebrows, you'll notice that there are areas of dark values and then it curves back and sometimes the value either gets lighter depending on where the light is. And it's very soft. You're seeing this collection of small pieces like hair, right? Eyebrow hair, but it's not one big clump of hair. It's all these tiny little pieces of hair gathering together to create that shape. And when we look at a portrait in an eyebrow, it's never really going to look unless somebody has literally physically drawn it onto their face. Same with the lips. And we'll get to the lips. We've noticed, I think it is maybe the 80s when people do that, where people take lip liner and physically draw a dark line around their lips. We've seen it, and when we look at people with makeup like that, it looks weird. It looks kind of artificial. You can see it. You can see that line, and it looks kind of off, right? So most linings of the lips are very soft because what's happening is the area where the skin, the upper lip and the lower lip, is just kind of almost kind of molding or melding together. And you'll see a very soft transition from the skin to the lip, upper and lower lip area. So these lines are very soft. Another area where I tend to see hard lines, the lining of the eye, the upper lid and lower lid. I tend to see, and again, we have people that take eyeliner and they will line their upper and lower lids, right? And it looks weird. It makes their eyes look a lot bigger than they actually are. And it deceives the viewer. People, I think you've seen, like, people have taken eyeliner and they have lengthened the line of the eye, and it's actually making it look bigger. It's making the eye look huge, like what are those dolls? The Bratz dolls that my daughter used to have. And it's deceiving because they haven't made their eyes bigger. They're just using, like we would with paint, they're using makeup to give the viewer the impression that it's bigger. People do the same thing with their lips. They line their lips above the lip line to make their lips look plumper or bigger. Let's go back to return to the lining of the eyes. But in reality, this area, when we look at it, whether there's eyeliner up on the top lid or in the bottom, our eyes don't see it so clearly. Even if we have perfect vision, we still see why. Why is because we've got eyelashes that are sticking up kind of below that, right? Because the eyelashes are kind of sticking below where you would put your eyeliner. And that's skewing what we're seeing. It's kind of blurring what we're seeing. We're seeing bits and pieces of the upper lid line, in addition to all the little eyelashes that are kind of poking out and over that area. And it's really not that strong. Lining of the eyes are pretty soft. There might be some areas of dark, but it's more of a softer line than a hard line like that. So when you are blocking in, or when you're developing your portrait, think softly rather than hard. Think of soft lines rather than hard lines. Think when you are in the developmental stage, where we are here, think softer transitions, smudging in areas to make them softer. We don't need to see strong contrast right now. When we get to the finishing part, we can tap in little eyelashes, but we won't tap full on eyelashes. I'll do it here so you can see. I'll make this go away. We're not going to go in. Let me go here. And we're not going to make eyelashes like that. That's not going to happen. That looks kind of weird. We'll kind of lightly indicate. A lot of times you'll hear me say, we'll make the impression, or we'll indicate the fact that there's an eyelash there by just lightly tapping in color. All right, let me take this away I don't want it to dry. Any questions on what I just kind of explained? So it's softer lines, the face, even around the face here, the transition from the skin to the hair is a soft transition. It's very soft, right? It goes from skin area to the hairline, but a lot of times you just take your brush and you just soften that and smudge it. And a great way to soften lines is to just have a clean brush handy. Let me get it in the camera here. and just take your brush and just kind of smudge. All this is dry, so I'm not moving paint. But while your paint is wet, you just kind of take your brush and do some smudging. You may have maybe 3 or 4 of these clean brushes handy so that, okay, I'm going to smudge here. It's dark. I'm not going to smudge in other areas because I'm going to contaminate my values. So usually I should, sometimes I forget, but it's good to have like 3 or 4 clean brushes by your side so that you can smudge and kind of make softer transitions and lines. All right, so let's talk about the mouth and let's go on like a little journey here. All right, so let's start from the top of the head and we're going to work our way down to the chin. And I'm going to just kind of explain the shape, what's happening. All right, so we start at the hairline here. And if you can literally do it to your own head, right? We start at the hairline and we notice this is kind of pushed back towards the hairline. If we put our hand in this area right here, we notice this is kind of back. And then if we run our hand along the forehead area right here, we'll notice that it curves. We've got this kind of curvature going. We can feel it. We notice that the path, right? We are back in the hairline, and then we're starting to curve out. We're starting to curve out with that forehead. Let's go to the left and right of that forehead. If we feel a bone right here. If we feel our own forehead, we feel a bone happening right here, right? And then if we feel to the left and right of that, we notice it starts to indent. We notice that we feel this here, and we notice this starts to come in a bit on the left and right side. We can feel it. So what's going to happen? What does that mean for value, right? Well, depending on where the light is hitting, this is sticking out more than this over here. So the light, and it all depends on where the light's hitting. We're going to assume the light's hitting right down on this face here. That the light is going to see this more, and there'll be a slight shadow on the left and right. We can feel those little indents. And then what's happened, right? If we go on the left and right side of that forehead, we feel that it goes into an indent. And then if we continue to feel, we go back up again. There's the brow bone right here. So we feel this forehead area that indents on the left and right side, and then we start to come back. We start to angle back out for the brow line, right? So sometimes we see this area right here above the eyebrow, we tend to see some light there. We tend to see light hitting this area. Why? Because it's starting to come back out. And then we've got the eyebrows. And when I was in the eyebrow area, feel your eyebrows, because at some point in your eyebrow, you notice that there's a bone, there's some type of bone, right? It's usually like right there. And then you notice what happens is everything on the other side of that bone starts to curve back towards the hairline, right? So this, if you notice, if you feel your eyebrow right there, you feel that it's kind of parallel to everything else here. But then there's a bone that's right here. You can feel it. And then you notice on the other side of the right of the bone or the left of that bone in the eyebrow, I don't think it's in the eyebrow, but in the skull area right there, you notice everything starts to curve back towards the hairline. That bone area, if you feel it, is usually a good indicator, right, of the outer corner of the eyes. So the eyes do not reach all the way out to the hairline. There's a portion of the eye that stops, and then all of a sudden you're curving back towards the hairline and you got the temple there. You can find that and get a good gauge of where the outer area of the eye, the outer corner of the eye is, by using your eyebrow as the gauge. You feel that bone area. It's like right here, and where the eye starts curving back, the skull starts curving back towards the hairline, that's usually where the outer corner of the eye is going to sit. Usually. And usually, not all the time, I don't want to create this is set in stone, but usually the inner area of the inner corner of the eye will usually align with the beginning of the eyebrow. Usually, I'm not going to say all the time because some people have unibrows and they go all the way across, but most of the time. So that's your eyebrow is a great way to gauge the inner and outer area, the outer corners of the eye, so you get a good idea of how to measure the eyes. So one thing I always tend to see is, I used to do it, that eyes are always too big. A lot of newer artists will be in no faults of anyone, because they look bigger than they actually are, especially when somebody has a lot of makeup on. The eyeliner, the eyeshadow, the mascara will make the eyes look bigger than they actually are. And the lighting and whatever filter the photographer has used. So use your measuring, right? Look at the reference photo and just kind of gauge, where does the end of the eye end up? And just make sure that you're aligning that on your own canvas. All right, so we keep going with our journey here. We started here, we're curving, we've got the brow bone, and all of a sudden we start to dip. We dip back in. There's a little valley. So I like to call them hills and valleys. So we've got a hill and we dip right here. We can feel it. Right in here is a little valley. This tends to be where the inner corners of the eyes sit, right? It tends to align, right, in that same area. Not all the time, but in general. Right? And we have this little dip going on in here. So this area right here, this little triangle right here, is angling in towards the eye area. Then we dip, and then we notice the nose, we're coming back, we're angling back out. Right? So we've got this, it goes down, dips in, and then we start coming back out, and we can feel when we put our flat hand in front of our face like this, what do we feel? We usually feel this ball of the nose. So this tends to stick out more than any other area of the face. Now, everybody's nose is different. Some people have flatter, pointier, but in general, this area, the ball of the nose, tends to stick out more. And what we're noticing is we've got this big hill going on here, right? This is curved, very spear-like, right? And we're curving back towards the left and right sides of that nose area. And then we've got the ball of the nose. We've got the two nostril flaps here, right? That are kind of curving again back in. And then what happens is we've got the ball of the nose, we're sticking out, we're sticking all the way out, and all of a sudden we're going right back down the hill to our valley right underneath the nose there. So I don't know, I mean, there's a ton of technical terms of all the little kind of hills and valleys of the face. I just like to look at them because I visualize when I am forming the face, all those shapes, and how my journey, what's happening in the certain areas. Is this in or are we coming out? Is the light? So when I understand all the hills and valleys of the face, then I have an understanding of when light is hitting, the light's right here, what areas of the face are going to see light more than others, right? We tend to see a lot of shadow going on right here. Why? Because this is curving back in towards the inner corners of the eye. And then let's talk about the eye shape, right? So the eye shape, the eye isn't just an almond shape that we draw onto our eye. We actually, what's happening is we've got this, if we look at the skull, we notice that there's a big hole right here. We can feel it if we touch this whole area right here. We can feel the hole or the outer edges of the hole. And then what sits inside that hole is the eyeball. I like to call it, it's like a golf ball or ping pong ball. And then you have the upper and lower lids that hold that ball into place. So what's happening is you have this ball shape going on the left and right sides, and the upper and lower lid are just kind of wrapping themselves around, keeping the ball in place. It's wrapping around. So again, we've got sphere shapes going on here. Now, why, a lot of times when you look at a reference photo, we see those little highlights in the eye and they look pretty bright. Well, why? Because it's a photographer has artificial light that is reflecting, and a lot of times we see that light really bright. However, and let's talk about the whites of the eyes as well. The whites of the eyes aren't white. They're not as bright as we think they are. We get deceived into thinking that the whites of the eyes are like white. Well, maybe they are. However, what's happening here? There's a lot of layers going on here. So if we think about it, we've got the upper lid that is the awning. I like to call the upper lid the awning. So it is sitting on top, protecting the eyeball area, right? And then you've got the lower lid, which is kind of like a bowl shape that the eyeball is sitting in. So the eyeball is actually inside this area. And you've got the upper lid and the lower lid kind of covering it up. So the whites of the eyes are never going to be as bright as this area right here, because it's not, if the light is hitting here, this is closer to the light than what's happening over here. And we may see it because a photographer has maybe adjusted the photograph and filtered it to make it look bright, or something that will make eyes look brighter is maybe somebody put a lot of eyeliner. Eyeliner tends to give the viewer the impression that the whites of the eyes are a lot brighter, and then they end up looking bigger. So a lot of times reference photos deceive us unless we take our own reference photos. So we've got this sphere shape happening here. And then we start moving, right? We start moving below this eye shape, and we notice we've got bags under our eyes. Some are puffier than others, right? We notice this area right here, we also notice is really kind of sensitive, right? That's why we get the bags under our eyes. And then what happens is the cheekbone starts forming, right? And we can feel it. We can feel, right? It's coming down into this little valley here. And then we can feel the cheekbone sticking out right here on the left and right side. So we feel this bone right here. We can feel it. And if we touch these areas right here, these are kind of puffy too. So that's where we, I did the forehead, the eyes, and the nose. So that's the path. So where do we go from here with the mouth area? So let's ball of the nose, right? We're sticking out. This is the air. If my hand was right here, I'd feel that nose. I wouldn't feel any other area of the face. I wouldn't. If my hand was standing right here, the only thing I would really feel on my face is that tip of the nose. Everything else would be back, right? Curved back. So let's take that same journey in the mouth area and see what's happening. The mouth area consists of everything. I like to call these things right here the laugh lines. Let me make sure my hair is out of the way, right? And then you've got the upper lip area, which is up here. This is all the lip area. And then you've got the lower lip area, which consists of these areas right here. And then you've got the chin starting and beginning to form. So we've got the ball of the nose. We start going in. This kind of is in this little valley right here, right? And now we're aligned with the nostrils, the right and left nostrils of the nose. And then if we take our finger and we feel, right, put our finger there right underneath the nose area, and we start kind of tracing it to the upper lip, we notice this area right here is starting to angle out a bit, just a bit, slightly. Not everybody's different, but it's starting to come back out. This whole area, we notice we've got the cheekbone. We notice a little valley here. That's where the laugh lines are. And then we also notice that things start, we go in and then we start coming back out to meet the upper lip. And we notice sometimes we see a lot of light hitting right in the widow's peak, the little peak here in the middle of the mouth. Why? Because this tends to, if we put our hand to cover our mouth, we would actually touch our hand in some cases, not everybody's, but in my case, I feel right here. And then this is kind of aligned with my lower lip. And then what happens now? We're going in, we've got the widow's peak here, and then all of a sudden the upper lip starts curving in towards the middle of the mouth. So this upper lip starts angling back in. And then all of a sudden the lower lip starts and we start kind of coming back out. And then we go right back in to start forming that chin area. And then the chin, right? We've got a valley here, we come back out and then we go back in. So we've got all these hills and valleys happening in the face. And it's a good idea to have a good understanding of those hills and valleys so that you know how to shape how the face is shaped. So let's kind of focus here. We've got this area. So this whole area is what's technically termed the teeth cylinder, because this upper area is what's kind of holding the upper gums. It's kind of protecting the upper gums. And down here, right, even though this isn't a part of the lip, these areas right here, our lower gums are sitting right here. Another thing that we need to take into account is that if we put our hand on our lips, we'll notice that we'll only really touch the middle portion. And what's happening is that we're curving back towards the jawline, right? And this whole area, the whole head really is a cylinder in itself. So we've got this area that is coming up, and then all of a sudden, when we kind of look at the shape of what's happening in the head area, we're curving back towards the hairline, curving back towards the ears, and curving back towards the back part of the jaw. So we've got this shape. So our lips, what we have to think when we're creating our lips, same with the eye as well, is that the lips, this whole thing isn't sitting straight in this area. This area right here is the only area right here that's kind of aligned with the nose, right? Sitting right here, aligned with the nose. Everything else to the left and right side of that is curving back. Any questions? All right. So going to my palette here, and why don't I have my palette? In a minute. What happened here? Bear with me. There we go. Okay. All right. So going to my palette and looking at my reference photo, and I'll put my reference photo in the side area. I have it right here, but I can't fit it in everything, so everything kind of shows up. But what I notice is I have my laugh lines here. And then this area right here, there seems to be a lot of light sitting in this area. And what I notice is that, let me just try to put the photo up here. It's so light. Can't get it like perfect here, but I'll put it in the screen. So
sorry, if you angle it,
huh?
yeah, don't put it flat onto the painting. We can see it better.
Here, okay. I'm gonna put it in this camera here. So
Okay.
what am I seeing here? So here is my upper teeth cylinder. Actually, I'm gonna switch cameras here. Look at that. There we go. Look at that. What am I seeing in the reference photo? So I see my upper teeth cylinder here. I see that it's a lot lighter on this side. And then of course we've got our hills and valleys in the middle, right? We've got goes up, down, up, down. I notice that this side is the value is a little bit darker too. But I don't want to make it so bright here that it's as bright as what's happening right there. And then I look at my lip area and I don't, the value isn't dark, right? We're not as dark as maybe the nostril area. But I do want to make it look like it is up and curving in. What's interesting is I see right here, I see some light. I see a dark line, which isn't that dark. But I see some light, and that's probably the reflective light coming from the light that's hitting the bottom lip. So what's probably happening is I've got all this light here. Why? Because this is kind of curving out and the light is hitting this area right here. And then it's curving back towards this dark area here. But what's happening right here, I see like a line of light. And what's happening is this part of the lip is angling back towards the middle area. But this area right above the dark area is probably reflecting what's happening right here. And then when I get to this lower lip, you start seeing the light, you don't see the light as bold as you see it there. Why? Because it's starting to curve back in and under. And then sometimes we see some light down in here, but it's not as bright as the light there or as the light there. So technically, really technically, the brightest area, if light is hitting, right, that should be the brightest bright, right? A lot of times we do see a lot of, depending, even if you put some lipstick, and I think I had lipstick on here, or lip gloss. So any type of lip gloss or lipstick is going to reflect, is going to kind of capture that light a lot more than if I didn't have any lip gloss or something on. So a lot of times we'll see a lot of brightness that is similar to the light that's hitting this area right here. But sometimes you just want to tone that down just a bit. And then we notice, right, the lower lip area, we notice it starts getting darker in this area. Why? Because it's starting to angle in towards the chin area. And this area kind of curves out and gathers itself into this area right here. So that's what I'm seeing. As for color, what am I seeing? I'm seeing I have an overall greenish tone to my face. So a lot of these lighter areas, I'm going to be pulling in my green, my Viridian, adding it to my color, whatever value line I'm using, because there's a lot of green in there. I also see, especially where in this area right here and the area right here, I see a lot of redness. A lot of times we have a lot of redness in our skin, but along that redness, I also see a lot of blue and purple tones in there as well. So that's what I see. All right, so let's go to my canvas. I'm going to switch and go back. And let me just check my camera here. Bear with me, so I have a good. There we go. Okay. So let's begin with that upper. Ooh, I had paint on there. The upper area of the teeth cylinder, this area right here. So I see light. It's definitely a lot lighter than I'm looking in the cheek area. So I've determined that my mid-tone line is going to be my line 4 of my palette. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a little bit lower, and I'm going to start with a line 3 right here of my value line. I'm going to test it out. I don't know if that's what I want, but I'm going to start there. And I'm just taking some of the transparent earth and a little bit of linseed oil and some of the green, Viridian green. That's it. I'm not going to go, you know, I'll start there and then I'll determine whether I need to get rosier, I need to get bluer, I need to be more yellowy. Maybe I want to gray it out a bit with my side colors of these purples. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more redder or orangier. So I start with a simple mixture. So in this case, I can either do the burnt sienna or I can do the transparent red earth. I just decided to start there and I added a little green to it. And I'll go ahead and add it to my face there, to an area, right, in that upper teeth cylinder. And I'll determine by looking at it whether it's going to work or not. It's a little dark. It's a little too dark. So I'm going to do the same thing and I'm going to test it out again. I don't need to make perfect decisions right off every single time. I can experiment until I get what I want. All right, so that's a little dark. I'm gonna take my paper towel because I always have that, and I'm just gonna smudge it and take it away a bit. And I'm gonna start over and I'm gonna see, I'm in my line 2 now. I'm gonna mix that same mixture, but I just went down a value. And I'll take some of the Viridian. Viridian tends to dry a lot quicker than the other colors. So a lot of my Viridians are almost dry, even though I've been putting this in the freezer. And I'm gonna go ahead and mix Viridian with the same transparent earth color, but I went to a lighter value. And I'll just go into that little space and I'll test it out to see if it works. And I'll just tap it in a small space. I'm not going to make major decisions here, but I just tap. I decide, okay, is this what I'm seeing? Is this, or do I need to get redder? Do I need to get rosier? Do I need to get more purpley? Where do I need to go with this? Again, I've got my paper towel. I can just kind of take it away if it doesn't work. So I'm forcing myself to stare at the reference photo, and I'm seeing a little bit of rosiness or even like a more purple in this area. So I'm gonna got my mixture there, and I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna add some of the quinacridone magenta, a little bit, same value line, and I'm gonna add that to my mixture, keeping it simple. And I'm gonna go right back to that space, and I'm gonna add a little bit over there and see if that's what I'm looking for. And it's okay. It might be a little too bright. I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit more. But I can work off that. I think it's okay. And it does show up a little gray. Why? Why is it showing up a little grayish on my canvas? Well, there's a few things. There's a few reasons why my color is showing up as gray, which in turn looks a little bit more realistic than what's happening in my underpainting. My color is showing up gray because my underpainting is extremely warm. So I'm playing with these, and then the color that I'm adding, right, has been lightened with a lot of that titanium white. So it's the more titanium white you add to a color, the less chroma, the less saturation happens, and it kind of grays, almost grays out your color. It starts taking out the vibrancy of the color. So you're almost stripping out the vibrancy of the color as you add more white. So then it becomes a little bit more grayer. It's not gray, but it has a grayish, less chromatic tone to it. So because I'm adding that grayer tone, it's showing up as a little bit grayer over this extremely warm underpainting. You may have the opposite effect if your underpainting is extremely cool. When you add color, you'll have that play of warm and cool. It may look a little bit different. Always experiment with underpaintings. I like to have a warm underpainting because I can get that coolness going immediately, and then I can go back in with additional layers to warm areas up later on through glazing and so forth, which I'll go over. All right, so thinking of, okay, where do I go next here? Well, I'm going to focus on what's happening right here in this area, the outer. I'm just going to focus on various just small areas. So I'm focusing on this outer corner of the mouth area and what's happening. So let me go back to my photo, because you don't always see it in the photo. So what's happening is that we're angling out and we start all this area right here. We start from right here. We start to kind of gather everything in, and everything kind of gathers in and kind of curves in towards this little corner right here. So we're starting to notice, if you zoom in to the photo, you notice that things start curving in towards this corner. So I need to start getting a little bit darker. I need to get that value a little bit darker, so I'm giving the impression that things are curving in towards this little corner here. So what I do is I'm right here in my line 2. And I'm gonna move up slowly. I'm not gonna make a major. I know I need to start getting a little bit darker, but I don't want to make a major shift in value. I'm gonna work my way slowly until it gives me what I want. So I'm gonna go back to my line 3. I'm gonna have that same mixture. I'm using the transparent earth. I've got some of the Viridian, and just like I did here, I added a little bit of the quinacridone magenta. And I'm going to go in, I'm going to focus right on that little corner there. And I notice it's not really dark enough. I just add a tiny little dot of color. Now, if you feel more comfortable, especially in these little tiny areas, I always say use larger brushes, but when you get into these little tiny areas, you can always pick up a smaller brush. And I always like to have one handy there. So I'm noticing it's not really giving me, it's a little too light. So again, I'm just going to go up slowly. I go up to my line 4. I make that same mixture. I've got the transparent earth. I've got the Viridian, and I'll do a little bit of that purple. It starts getting a little darker. And I'm just going to tap a little bit of that in that area there. And then I'll take a clean brush. If I have a clean brush here. And I'll just kind of soften that. And is that giving me what I want? Well, kind of. It's almost there, but still not, I do want to get the area, right, where the upper and lower lip separate. It's a little darker. Again, I don't want to immediately assume that that dark area between that lip is going to be on my line 7, or it could be even darker. I don't want to assume. I'm just going to slowly work my way up until I see what I want to see. Because sometimes it's not that dark. Sometimes everything isn't as dark as we think it is. So I like to just do a slow roll up my value scale here. So now I'm going up again. I'm in my line 5. I'm going to mix that same mixture. I've got my Viridian, I've got my transparent earth, and a little bit of the quinacridone magenta. I'm going to go back to that area, and I'm going to tap in, just lightly tap in that area there. And then I'm going to step back and see, is it giving me what I want? It's actually not that bad. And I'm starting to see the difference between the skin area and the middle of the lip. So what I'll do is I'm just going to kind of smudge I'm in this tiny little area here, and I'll smudge or move my clean brush in the shape of what's happening there. So let me go back to my photo to demonstrate on my photo. I'm using my clean brush, and when I smudge, because I know what's happening, I know that this area is curving in towards this little corner right here. I'm going to smudge my brush in that direction. I'm going to move it in the direction that that shape is going so that I can get that, that shape. So if I was doing the bottom lip, I'd start kind of smudging outward, right? Because I feel it's coming outward. So all that, I just did that tiny little section. Is it perfect right now? No. Is it exactly where I want it to be? No, but it's a beginning. And then I look at the photo again and I start kind of deciding, okay, what else is happening here? Well, I notice I have this laugh line here. And then I notice it kind of dips in and then we're coming out a bit. But I also notice, let me get my photo again. I've got my laugh line here and it's dipping in. And then I notice I see some light here, but then I also notice that it's getting a little bit darker over here. So I notice that this is kind of, the hill is coming down into a valley, which is my laugh line. And this also, we've got a hill right here and we're curving back down. We're curving in or curving around, and it's starting to curve because we're a sphere, and it's curving down towards the valley here, where the cheekbone is kind of sitting right here. In addition, we've got the nose area that is sticking out and it becomes an awning, right? It's covering or creating shadow in this area right here. So we need to take that into account, that the nose is actually kind of covering some of that light as well. So even though sometimes we see a lot of light sometimes right here and it looks pretty bright, it's never going to be as bright as this right here, unless the photographer has artificially kind of changed it themselves. All right, back to my painting. And what I'm seeing, I'm going to focus right underneath this nose here, right here. What I'm seeing is, I'm seeing a lot of purple, but I'm also seeing a lot of pink or red. I'm seeing a lot of, because the nostril area, if you feel your nostril area, there's no real bone, right? It's not sitting on a bone. It's kind of, I think that's what we call cartilage or whatever. So we've got more, it's more of a squishier, rather than what's happening here. We feel, occasionally we feel bone, but right, this nostril area isn't a part of that skeletal structure. So sometimes we get a lot of redness in the nostril, left and right nostril flap area. It's almost like similar to when we put our hand in front of, let me get in the camera here. When we put our hand in front of light, what's really interesting is you can actually almost see through your skin in your hand, right? If you can see the redness and your hands almost glow if you put light against it. Well, and the same thing happens in that nose area, right? And the same thing happens in the ear area. It's almost like it's see-through, almost, not quite, but if you put light against it, you'll see, right, the light kind of shimmer through those areas. And that nostril, the left and right nostril area, has that type of redness, very similar to what's happening in the ear area as well. So in these areas, I like to use a lot, some more of a reddish, a little bit more of my cadmium red and a little bit of the alizarin crimson. So I like to play with my reds in those areas, the bottoms of the nostril flap areas, and even the ear when I'm working on that. But I've been liking this quinacridone rose. So even though this quinacridone rose isn't in my little value structure, I'm going to bring it down and I'm going to go to my line 4. I'm going to bring it in there and I'm going to play with it. And I'm just going to mix it with some of the cadmium red light. And I'm going to go, right? I just mix those two together. I'm going to go to my painting and I'm going to test it out. I'm going to make a couple of little marks. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to look at my reference photo. I'm going to test it. Is this what I want? Is it too light? Is it too dark? Is it too red? I'm not going to continue to start making marks until I've made the decision if that's where I want to go. I'm also noticing a little bit of yellow or yellowish or orangey tone in a part of that nostril flap. So I'm going to add a little bit of the yellow ochre to a little bit of that mixture there. And again, I'm going to just tap. Just tap. Tapping in the color. What happens if I tap in the color and I lose the nostril shape? That's fine. You can always go back and make adjustments. Now I'm underneath this nostril shape. And the reason why I'm revisiting this is because it's going to help me kind of work below that the bottom nostril. I notice that it's a little bit darker. I've got a little bit of shadow. I notice it gets a little bit darker underneath. Let me get the photo again. Right? I notice that it's dark right underneath the nostril flap area. Put this back. I'm not going to immediately go to my darkest line. I'm not, because I don't know if it's that dark. So I'm just going to go a little slow. I was here. I'm going to go up to my 5 value line. I'm going to go ahead and mix that same mixture. I've got the cadmium red light and a little bit of the quinacridone rose. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tap. If I tap and I'm struggling to get paint, I just kind of dip my brush in a little bit of the linseed oil or medium, whatever you're using. And I just tap that shadow line. And I tap just little taps of color and I determine, is this dark enough? Is this what I want? Is it too red? Is it too orangey? Do I need to make it a little bit darker? Well, I think it's a little too red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to move myself to this blue here, same value line. And I'm going to add a little bit of blue to the mixture. That will neutralize that color so it's not so red. I'm going to go back in and I'm just going to tap. A good tool to use when you're doing these little taps is a mahl stick. And I'm not really this one because I don't have the right easel, but a mahl stick is a great tool to use to get that precision. And I look at it and I'm like, okay, that works. That works. All I did was I just continued the mixture. I realized that it's too red. It's too much red. And I neutralized that red by going to my blue and adding blue to that mixture. And it works for now. Now I notice this shadow line is very soft. It's not a hard line, right? No hard line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a clean brush and I'm just going to soften it down. I'm going to push it down a bit. In that area, I'm just going to push it down a bit. So this area right here is underneath the nose area. And then we're going to come back out. I'm going to link this with what I did there. This might be a little bit brighter. So here I was in line 2. I'm just going to go back in with my line 2. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to that. And I'm going to begin the shape of that upper teeth cylinder area. I'll take my clean brush and just kind of tap and soften that and see, am I getting the shape? Is it working? Is it too bright? Is it too dark? I like the coloring and I'm getting that shape. I probably need to get a little bit darker slightly in this area to give that, to get this to be more kind of curved inward. So I've got one more section in this area. I've got this area right here. Back to my photo. I've got this area where the nostril flap here, and we've got the laugh line right here. And I've got this area, which isn't as bright as what's happening over here. And it's going up, and you can note it's like a little triangle right here. Hopefully that's in this, right? And what's happening, what's happening over here? We've got the laugh line, so we notice, right, it's curving in, but we also have this nose flap here that is covering up some of that area. And there's usually a lot of redness, right? Our skin is very sensitive, and usually there's a lot of redness in this area too. So I know that when I'm looking at this photo, I know that it's not as bright. Let me zoom it. It's not as bright as what's happening here, because this part of the mouth it's angling out, right, to kind of gather itself towards the upper lip. So this area, if you feel right here, you'll notice you're not touching your gum anymore. It's kind of curving back and back behind this nostril flap. So I'm going to use a slightly darker value. Okay. So where did I go? I was right here in line 2. So I'm not sure it's this dark. I don't know. I don't know how dark the value. I'm going to explore and experiment. If it doesn't work, all I have to do is go up a little bit darker or go a little bit darker. So I'm going to go, let me get the right brush here. I'm going to use a small brush. This area right here of the upper lip area is a little bit lighter. I'm going to go up a value. This is a little dry, but I'm going to use that same mixture. And I'm just going to I'm going to go into that little triangle area, and I'm just going to tap in just tap in a little bit of color. I don't need to make any decisions. I'll look at what I painted and I'll decide, I think it's a little redder. I think I need to be a little bit red. The value is right, but I think there's a lot more redness in that. So I'm not happy with that. I'm just going to take my paper towel and I'm going to tap that and I'm going to decide what type of redness, right? Because I've got all these reds here. Do I need, is it more of a purpley redness? No, that's not what I'm seeing. Is it more of a cooler type of rosier red? No, I think it's more of an orangier red. I think that's what I'm seeing. And I say, I think, because it may not be right, but I'm gonna see what I'm seeing here. And I'm gonna use my cadmium red and I'm gonna add that to the mixture. And I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna make a mark. And now, because I've added this red, it almost looks like it's just as bright. So I think I need to get a little bit redder. And I'm going to add a little bit of the yellow. And we'll see. I'm going to see if this works. A little bit at a time. So I'm really trying to slowly build up to a more redder kind of tone. And I put that on there and it's coming out a little too bright. So guess what? I'm going to go up. I'm going to go into, I didn't really think it would be this dark, but I'm going to go into this area right here, mix the same thing, adding a little yellow, a little of the cadmium red light, and I'm going to see if this is going to be what I want. I'm going to tap, I'm going to look at that shape, and I'm just going to tap in that area there, and that's much better. However, it's almost like a gradation. We've got this area on the nostril flap that is in shadow because of the laugh line, right? And so this area at the top right here is a little bit darker. So guess what? I'm going to go up a little bit higher. I'm going to mix that same mixture. Add a little yellow. And I'm going to go into that crease area right here where the laugh line starts beginning. I'm just going to tap in that darker value. And even the area, I'm just going to tap in that darker value in the area where the nostril is, because the nostril is kind of covering up some of that area. It becomes a little kind of awning over this upper area of the teeth cylinder there. So I step back and I kind of determine and I look at what I just painted. And I decide, is this working, right? Is this where I want it to be? And I think it's a good start. I think I can't really make any major decisions until I do the entire area.
It's not clicking in.
So I'm gonna kind of work this area. And this is like, it's a slow process. Like all these small little marks and decision makings that I make, I slow down my process. And why do I do that? I do that so that I can condition myself to see what's actually happening and what's really staring at the reference photo to the point where you see every little pore everything that's happening. You see everything. The longer and longer you stare at something, the more you'll start seeing things that you didn't see before. Same concept of, you know, if you stand in a dark room, the longer you stand in there, you know, the more you start seeing. So my process is very slow. I try not to rush through the process, because when I rush through the process and I don't kind of ask myself these questions, that's when I start screwing up and I start making mistakes and things start getting wonky. So I've got just a general block in here. Nothing is like, okay, I'm done, but it's just a general block in. I just want to get information. I want to start forming the shapes that I see. So I'm just going to go over here. I'm probably not, because of time, I'm probably not going to get through the whole mouth, but I will definitely record the rest of it later today or tomorrow. So let's look at this side of the teeth cylinder. It's a little bit darker when I'm looking at it. Let me bring back the photo here. I see that this is a little darker than what's happening over here. So I'm going to kind of keep that into account when I'm filling in that area. It's the same kind of shape, same things happening. Though I do notice that when it's gathering in towards the corner of the mouth, the upper and lower lip area, I notice that my mouth tends to gather a little bit more. And I notice that when I do take a photo, I notice that this area is a lot darker than this area here. So I guess what I'm seeing is I tend to notice that when I am taking a photo and I'm not smiling, some muscle over here kind of behaves differently than the muscle over here. So those are, when I say you want to see those things, those are the things you want to see, because I can see it now. Now that I stare at my face and I stare at, I'm not really smiling, I'm kind of just laying there. I notice that this side of my face tends to behave a little bit differently than this side. So it's not always going to be the same. So let me begin. Let me start. I'm going to start in my line 4 because I'm not really sure. I'm still going to add my green because I do have a greenish tone. And I'm going to start kind of creating, just kind of adding some color and seeing, stepping back to see if this is what, you know, what I want. It might be a little darker. So again, I'm going to go up to my line 5. I'll add a little bit of green and I'll add, that might be too dark and it might be too green. So I'm just going to take my paper towel and just kind of rub it. Sometimes when you rub it, it actually comes out to what you want. I'm going to go back to my line 4 because I think that's correct. And I think I'm going to kind of move towards a more peachier mixture without the green. And maybe that is what I'm looking for. So I mixed my transparent earth with cadmium red light and my yellow ochre, and I'm going to go back to that area. And that's a little bit better. I know it's really hard to see the nuances, but it's a little bit better. It's a little bit more yellower. And I'm just going to go in with a little bit more of the transparent earth to kind of make it a little bit more earthier. And then I notice that this part is a little bit lighter than what's happening in that corner of the nose area. So I'm gonna go down, to my line 3. I'm gonna use that same mixture. And I'm gonna kind of create that shape. I'm gonna stop short because I know what's happening, that this area right here it's kind of curving inward. And I'm gonna step back and observe. It still looks kind of bright. So I'm gonna just kind of move some of that dark into that and see if that works. So what I did was I took my clean brush and smudged some of that darker value into my lighter value. And sometimes that works. I want this to be a little bit darker than this side right here, but not too dark. And then I'm going to pull my small brush and I'm going to go up. I'm going to darken it a bit. I'm going to go up to my line 5, mix that same mixture. And I'm just going to tap in that area where the mouth is starting to curve in towards the corners of the lip area. And I'm just not really kind of I'm just kind of tapping it in. Stepping back to observe, to see if it's getting the shape that I want. I do notice in this area a lot more shadow. I notice a lot more dark in that corner. So I'm going to go up to my line 6, mix that same mixture. Get a little darker, a little bit darker. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add a little bit of blue to that because I know that I want it to neutralize it a bit. It's a little bit too red. So I need to add some blue to just kind of calm it down a bit. And I'm just going to tap some of that dark in that area there. And I step back to observe. I take my clean brush and I'm just going to soften just a bit. And I will, at this point, I know I have this area right here, but at this point, I would take a photo of it. I'd step back, I'd take a break, and I'd kind of recognize what's happening. I'm not worried about the color at this point. What I'm trying to achieve is I want to get that shape. I want to see this shape curving, right? This is a hill. These are the valleys of the hill, and we're kind of curving out and back in. And I want that shape to happen. So that's what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about green, red, purple, blue. I am a little bit, but really and honestly, I just want to achieve that shape. And it could take me a while to get there. But what I'll do is I go back to my reference photo and I just kind of see, what am I seeing? What do I see in the photo? Is it darker? Is it lighter? Is it a cooler, right? Are we leaning more towards these type of blues and greens, or are we leaning towards more yellows and reds in what we're seeing? And the face is filled with very cool tones and warm tones, almost together, back to back, next to each other. And sometimes that's what's creating the illusion that we are curving backward or we're creating shape. Looking at my time here. Any questions so far? I know that was a lot, and I know that I didn't finish, but usually what happens is I'll take my time and I'll go that slow to develop the shape. And so my phase 2 of where I'm going now is I'm just working on developing the shape. I can get the color, I can hike up the saturation, the chroma, I can do all those bells and whistles later on. But I want the shape. I want you to know that what's happening here is that the face is curving. We've got a cylinder shape, right? And that we've got various hills and valleys happening in the face that is creating the form, the planes in the face area. So I will continue to block that in, continue to block in the mouth area, the lip area, in the jaw area. And then the next area where I need to get information, because it's going to help me, one, shape and make sure my arms are correct, is I want to block in the hair area. And so that I can really get a true understanding of what to do in these grass, my negative space grass areas as well. Do I need to cool these down? Do I need to brighten them up? Do I need to darken them? I'm not sure yet until I start getting some more information in there. All right, let me turn back around. And let me, any questions? I'm gonna go back.
Oh, that's me only.
That's okay.
No, I have no questions. It's a very detailed process. It's amazingly detailed. And I appreciate that because your faces look absolutely amazingly lifelike after that. I am realizing that the pictures that I have and even was thinking of using is not going to be detailed enough. You know, I did the posterized view of the picture I wanted to use, but I think I have to go through the process, your process, meaning selfie, good lighting, all the details visible and so on. So that's what I realized today, because you work on every little millimeter
Well,
of the
yes.
portrait.
What I think when a lot of reference photos that get on Unsplash or, you know, another photographer has taken, right? What do you think that, like, let's put Kim Kardashian, right? A photo of Kim Kardashian or some model or whatever, right? And we know that that's not how they really look. We know that these photos have been brushed, they've been manipulated. We know that they're actually putting makeup, because now that we realize how makeup makes us see things differently. And sometimes we need to peel back the makeup because yes, makeup makes us look like we have big giant eyes. It makes us look like we have bigger lips and than is actually happening. It makes our cheekbones like cave in. So it manipulates. And sometimes when we translate that onto a painting, it looks kind of funny. It looks kind of weird, right? So
that's not even what I meant. I meant that I have, for example, that I don't know. If you can see it? No. Maybe if you see, it's not detailed enough. This is the painting. This is the picture.
Posterized view
for the dog. But you see, for what you're doing, it's not detailed enough. I need many more. I did the posterized view of it, and it simply does not have everything you're talking about. So if I want to follow your process, I need a better selfie.
So I mean, here in, in even this photo, I just took, let me get back to it. I just took a quick photo of myself, right? I didn't really focus on lighting. I didn't really focus on, I just kind of needed a photo to go with the painting. So literally this is the photo, and then I'm adding my head to somebody else's body.
No, I know. Yeah, I actually watched not absolutely every video, but yeah, 99% of the videos. And I realize what you're doing. I'm just saying, I don't think I have a picture that's such a close-up so that I can actually see all the hills and valleys. Yeah, I have to start from the very beginning. I can't just take a random photo. That's what I'm realizing. And try to work with it unless I'm going to, embellish, right?
Yes.
What I don't see.
Right? Some of the things that I do when I do take a selfie, when I take photos of myself, is I try to find, either I will go out and, so right here, I usually take a lot of selfies right in this where I'm sitting now, because I have this big giant window of natural light. But another thing I like to do is find a single source of light.
Okay.
So I have like a lamp, right? And you've got warm and cool light, right?
Yeah.
So get like, I don't know if you can see, let me see if I can read.
No, I can. I have a lamp that's actually 3 different types of light that I've got on right now. So I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Go into a room and just have just one source of light. So then what happens, that's what really, really makes an amazing portrait. And then you start seeing the shadow.
Cool or warm? What do you use? What light? Or it doesn't matter?
This one's warm.
Okay.
And I have a combination of both. So sometimes I'll use warm and cool at the same time.
Okay.
But most of the light that I use, for, let's see if I can find, I just want to give you an example of me using, playing with light. Let's see if I can find it. Hopefully I can. Bear with me a second.
Oh, yeah.
So I literally, I sat, in my bedroom. I had nothing fancy. I used my side light that I have next to my bed. I can move it, right? So that light is warmer. And hold on. And so I only had one source. I did have a window, but I closed the blinds, and I was able, I can find it here with my thousands of photos.
I know the feeling. Find a face, even with a search.
And sometimes it's just so much easier when you can have just one source of light. Where are you? When did I take that?
It's okay. If you don't find it, just put on your,
almost there.
website.
I'm almost there. Let's see here. Okay, I'm almost there.
Okay.
Where are you? I see all the paintings. Where are you? Okay, here. Let me get a good one. All right, so this is me in my bedroom. Of course, I have light,
very nice,
right? But I had this is a warm bedroom, my side.
Okay.
But you notice the contrast
That's right. Yeah.
And right. And so those are
Yeah.
great. If you're going to take a selfie, you really want to, if you want to do a self-portrait, what makes some dramatic portraits is when you do have that one source of light and you've got
Yeah.
that shadow and light and you can really see it. So, and this was warm light. It was just the side light from, I closed my blinds, so no real natural light. And I just had that warm light hitting one side of my face.
Yeah. Looks nice. And you've got a painting like that as well, right?
I do. I have
Yeah.
a painting. Why isn't it of, yeah, I have a painting of a lot of these. And then what to check it, do it in black and white. Because when you see it in black and white, you can see that dramatic effect that's happening. And then when you do something like that in posterized view, it really, you can really see the value shifts a lot more than if you just took, if you kind of went outside and you had overall light over you.
Yeah.
You could see it a lot more. So that's a suggestion. If you just get it, you don't have to set up you know, a photo shoot. You just get a simple warm light is perfect. And not even a ring light. Ring lights, you know, the lights that people use to take selfies.
Yeah.
Problem with ring lights, it's giving you this overall thing
Too
of
bright
light.
as well.
You want to have
Overall.
something, and then put the light in different spots. It's really,
Yeah,
really.
I will have to take some selfies.
And
Yeah, no, I have done. I have done basic portrait painting, and it's also always my face. It's just you can't tell, but it's, you know, all the dimensions are my face.
Yes.
But I've only after watching it was at what was it, Kaleidoscope or the other thing, watching the very how you broke down that in very, you know, good steps.
Yes.
That I know how to improve, right? Otherwise, it's all intuitive. No, honestly, otherwise, it's all intuitive. And this, I would like to thank you very much for.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, it can be intuitive, but I feel like if you understand what's happening.
That's right. That's what I mean. Okay. You can improve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because did you take, is it Lifebook that you took?
Oh yeah, both
Lifebook?
Lifebook and Kaleidoscope. Yeah.
So in that, I literally, when I teach those classes, it's literally broken down into its simplest form.
Very good.
Because
Very good.
if I get too technical with Lifebook, I can't. I have like an hour. I think Tamara gives me an hour or two.
Half an hour. I think you have half an hour.
Right.
Which is excellent because you get down to the basics.
Yes.
So that's very good. And thank you.
So that is,
yeah, I haven't moved. As I said, I'm right now I'm doing something else, but I got fascinated by the girl in the greenery, you know, from the water into greenery, and I want to watch it. I'm not sure I'm going to start my own portrait, but I'll start with the selfie.
And that's fine. So, and whatever, you know, this class isn't, you know, I didn't want to make it where you have to do exactly what I'm doing. If you're working on something and you just want you need feedback on whatever, it could be, you know, you could be painting, you could be painting your dog. I don't, you know, it doesn't.
Well, talking about that, exactly what I am doing, but it's cats, okay?
Oh, gorgeous. So beautiful. So is this your cat?
No, I don't have a cat. I'm allergic to cats. But friends ask me after my portraits of dogs. That's what friends ask me for.
Okay.
So that's my. I'm working on a cats this month, but we will have access to the videos, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, you know, I will watch them again and again, and I will following along. Good luck. I'm not going to take more of the time.
I'll say one thing about the same concepts that I'm using for a
Uh-huh.
human face are the same for a animal's face as well.
Sure.
So I use those
Absolutely.
same concepts when
Uh-huh.
I am
Absolutely.
painting a pet. So you can incorporate all that stuff into,
Yes,
whatever you're painting. All right.
absolutely.
So this is
And
recorded. I will kind of eventually, probably by the end of the day, and I will
you
record.
can cut me out. You can cut me out. I will not, object to that. Honestly.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
Well, thank you very much. I'll be following. I may have questions on the
no
way.
problem.
But
Yes.
so far it's been excellent, as I said. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.